If you're someone who is very ambitious but also feels stuck in life, then I'm hoping this video can be able to help you as it's helped me. I'm someone who's very ambitious and I have many things I want to strive for simultaneously, but all the times I end up not really actively working towards anything and I get stuck in kind of an overthinking mode. And so I'm going to share with you some of the things I've done to break myself out of that and to start making more forward momentum towards my different goals that I'm working on, usually simultaneously. Being ambitious is a huge gift. The more ambitious you are, the more progress you can make in life, the further ahead you can get in life. You can make much faster progress, much faster than the average person, much more quickly because of your ambition. Sometimes people paint being ambitious as a curse, the curse of being too ambitious. But like with all things, it has its pros and its cons, although ultimately I think the pros far outweigh the cons. So one of the first things you want to do if you are ambitious but you feel kind of stuck in life is to figure out your priorities. You need to have a list. You need to write down all of your goals that you're trying to achieve at any given moment, and they need to be able to be prioritized. This might require some introspection, but once you figure out what it is you want to put more effort into based on the list of priorities, the easier it will be to navigate your time and your resources. You're going to want to put more time and effort into whatever's highest on the list of priorities, and whatever's lowest should not be getting the same amount of time as whatever's highest. You want to give more time towards more achievable goals. Another thing worth remembering is to take stock of your resources. This can mean that some goals might require certain things, whether they be money, programs, being connected to the right people, all kinds of things. And sometimes we might be striving towards one goal where we don't really have the resources necessary to achieve the goal. And meanwhile, other goals of ours, we kind of already have all the resources, we just haven't put effort into that particular goal. You might be better off putting your time and attention towards goals that you can achieve right now versus goals that are kind of impossible to achieve right now. Obviously taking into account the whole priority thing, but some goals require much less effort in accruing resources than other ones. And so, especially if multiple smaller goals are there to fulfill a larger goal, you can go ahead and start making real progress towards certain goals in the meantime while you work on gathering or attaining the things you're going to need for other goals later on down the line. Sometimes when you're ambitious, you can want to do too many things at the same time. With me, I have like 20 different projects I want to work on simultaneously. And sometimes I will feel guilty for working more on one thing when I should be working on something else. And I have so many things that I feel equally passionate about, and I really don't know which thing to give my time and attention to. What ends up happening is I feel like I have too much I want to accomplish and not enough time in the day, and I'm kind of lamenting over it and feeling bad about it and thinking like, man, I wish I had more time in the day. And while I'm feeling bad for myself, I end up not really making any real progress on any of these different projects or goals that I want to do. And so one of the best things you can do is time blocking, because if you don't time block, you're going to end up stuck in analysis paralysis. You're just going to end up overthinking, and you're not really going to be taking any real effort or actions at that time. So time blocking gives you an allotted amount of time for each different goal or task that you're trying to get done. You can either do time block a certain amount of time a day, or you can time block a certain day a week per project, or you can allot 1 week at a time for each project. Some people are trying to work on 2 or 3 things at the same time. Other people are trying to work on 15 things at the same time. And I'm not telling you to throw some things by the wayside and only give your attention to 1 or 2 things, because when you're very ambitious, it's kind of in your blood. You kind of can't help but try to keep multiple plates spinning at the same time. So I think time blocking, setting aside a deliberate time frames or spaces of time for each different thing you're trying to accomplish, that's going to be your new best friend, time blocking. It's something that will take you a lot further. It's something that will allow you to really get some momentum going on multiple different fronts all at the same time. It's something that's helped me to really move forward with different job tasks or different projects instead of sitting around trying to scratch my head figuring out which things should I be working on. Another thing of value are sprints. And sprints are basically where you take one thing you're trying to accomplish, a goal, a project, or a job task, and you just go crazy on it. It could be for a few hours, it could be for a whole day, 2 days, 3 days, a week. You throw away all things that you're working on and just hyper focus on one thing, and you make it your complete obsession. And by steamrolling over it and just only giving it your time and attention, you can make tremendous progress on it. Obviously, you don't want to be careless, you don't want to overdo it or overwork yourself, and you don't want your work to be slapdash or look like it's just kind of thrown together. But if you are somebody who has an eye for detail and who is very aware of their output, then you could consider doing sprints once in a while to kind of supercharge some of the progress that you're making. Another thing you can consider doing is getting outside help. This could look like networking. This could also look like reaching out to companies and businesses that can potentially assist you with certain things. A lot of ambitious people want to try to get everything done by themselves. And although it's something you can be very proud of, and although you feel sometimes that you need to oversee every little bit of it, especially if it's something creative or your own brainchild, it can be of great value to bring other people on board, either on your team or simply reaching out to professionals who know what they're doing and who can do a much better job at what you're trying to accomplish, whether it be creating products or video editing or scheduling or any number of things. Networking, working with other people can be a tremendous asset, and it's a great resource that a lot of talented and ambitious people overlook because they want to try to do everything themselves. But when you pay a professional or you work with others to get things done quicker or more efficiently, it actually frees up more time to work on other things. So in the end, it's win-win in a bigger way. So definitely don't overlook your resources that come in the form of help outside of yourself. One thing that is a really good idea to do if you're very ambitious but you feel stuck is to constantly evaluate and reevaluate yourself, your goals, what are your ambitions telling you. I do an evaluation once a month, usually either at the end of the month or the beginning of the next month. Usually I try to do it towards the end of the month, like the last 2 or 3 days of the month. I look back at my previous month, and sometimes I will see that things that I was working very diligently on during the month, I find I kind of don't really care about it as much, or after putting a lot of effort into it, I realize that this goal isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, and so I will decide to shelve it and put more attention towards other things. That way you won't keep chugging along on certain paths or projects that are not really aligning with where you're trying to go mentally. And so it's very important to evaluate and reevaluate as you consider different things you want to work on, because a lot of things can change, and a month period is a good amount of time. Some people only evaluate once a year or once every 6 months or once a quarter, but I think it's of immense value to evaluate yourself once a month, because it allows you to let certain things go, incorporate new things. It allows you to troubleshoot a little bit or notice a pattern in your progress between one month to the next. It can also give you the opportunity to pivot at an earlier time rather than waiting 6 months to make a pivot regarding something that isn't exactly working out or something that requires a completely different approach than you've been using up until this point. Sometimes you can be struck with inspiration, and it can lead you to ride that wave of inspiration through a few weeks, but after the inspiration wears off, you realize that maybe this wasn't really the best idea. Doing 1 month evaluations is something that will kind of shine light on some of those things as well, to kind of keep you from over expanding your energy on things that aren't really fruitful, or from spreading yourself a little too thin on things that kind of don't really matter in the long run. Another thing about being ambitious but feeling a little stuck is sometimes we will look at people online, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram. We will see certain content creators who are within our niches, within our fields, that we're trying to break into, and they will have their own methods, their own forms of creating progress and momentum along their own paths and their own lives. And although these are of value, sometimes when we are hearing 2 and 3 or 12 different people expressing their different ways of doing things, some of those things will contradict one another, and you kind of, again, can be stuck in analysis paralysis. So sometimes one thing that can be a good idea is just to choose one person at a time. Just choose whoever you're most drawn to at that moment and try to replicate or try to utilize most of their methods for creating action and creating growth and momentum. Because if you try to incorporate 2 or 3 or more people's different ways of doing things, it can kind of get jumbled up. And we want things to be clear, concise, and to the point. Because if there's too much room for interpretation, if there's too much room for opposing ideas, then it's gonna kind of stifle progress and momentum. When you want to get a lot done in a small amount of time, or if you want to get a lot done quickly, you need to be able to have a more streamlined approach. You need to have systems in place that you don't have to think about or question. You don't want to have to think about 2 different opposing ideas, which one is the one I should follow next. You want to be able to kind of work on autopilot regarding your methods of production or your methods of action. And so don't allow too many different people to be whispering in your ear at the same time. Even if they're all valuable points of view, too many at the same time can be kind of devalue their whole point of them in the first place. So these are just a few things I try to remember and keep in mind whenever I feel kind of stuck in place, in spite of my being overly ambitious. Being overly ambitious is a huge blessing. It's a huge gift from the universe. A lot of people are not born with ambition, and although some people can learn to become ambitious, those of us who are naturally workaholics, who absolutely love making progress and getting a lot of work done and being proud of the work we put in, for all of us, it can be too easy to be stuck in place because of how big our goals and dreams are. So if you want more content like this, then absolutely subscribe. It's free to do, and I have much more content like this coming soon. If you like the video, then drop a like. And if you have any of your own tips for dealing with feeling stuck in place when you're overly ambitious, please comment it down below, because people read the comments and you could be able to bring value to anyone who watches this particular video. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.